Maybe I'll get started here. People can continue to join us. My name is Betty Gerner, and I'm very, very happy to welcome you all to. Nice to meet you too, Margaret and Eileen. We do this program periodically, twice a year, sometimes a little bit more frequently. But we have a group right now that's interested, so we're getting up and getting going. I am the tutor trainer. I also work in the office on Monday mornings from 9 to 3. I've been tutoring a student as well, although we have not met much during the pandemic. She works full time and is going to school a lot, taking a couple of heavy courses. So we've talked a few times. I think we'll start picking up again soon. And I've tutored students who could barely speak a word of English to somebody who was at a master's program and needed conversation and some fine tuning. So I've had a lot of good experience. As I alluded to before, I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Tonga in the South Pacific. And I know what it's like to be on the other side of this learner spectrum, and to know the pain of trying to learn a language and to become acculturated and all that kind of thing. And I think that was one of the experiences that brought me to the Literacy Center and tutoring. I'm a nurse by profession. I'm currently working for some friends part-time. So I'm staying out of trouble pretty much. But this is definitely one of my passions. I just really like tutoring. I like working with international students. So we welcome you.
Thank you.
I'd like to introduce Tammy Jackson, who is currently our director with future plans. You want to say a few words, Tammy?
Sure, yeah. Let me just turn this up. It's nice to meet all of you. Like Betty said, my name is Tammy. I'm the executive director here for Literacy Volunteers, at least until the end of August. I will be leaving, and I'm going to be leaving Milford. My husband and I are going to travel across the country by RV. So that is a part of our retirement plans. And so I'll at least get to know you a little bit over the summer. And when we have our placement, I'll be able to introduce you all to the next person. But I've been here for 19 years as a volunteer and as an employee. I am the only paid employee. So everybody else that comes to us is our volunteers. We've been around for over 25 years, and Betty will actually be celebrating her 20th anniversary next year with us. So she has a lot of good information, and she comes with a lot of knowledge when it comes to literacy volunteers. So you're in good hands with her as a tutor trainer. We mostly tutor adult immigrants that are coming to the United States with their English skills. There is a wide range of their abilities. Some are very basic and some are much more advanced. As the class goes on, Betty will kind of feel out what your comfort level is. Some people really enjoy a very beginner. Some people like a little more advanced. We have grammar classes and some online classes. We're doing one-on-one. So we're really trying to work with all of you so that it's the best experience that it can be for you. And we have plexiglass barriers in the office. So if that is something comfortable, you're welcome to come here. There are a couple classrooms, so you're welcome to book time if you'd like to come to the center. We're open 9 to 2, Monday through Thursday. And I can certainly accommodate your schedules if we need to do other times. Sometimes people come in the later afternoon or evening. We can leave doors. It's a city building, so we can try to work that out so that it best works for you and your schedule. There's about 53 different languages spoken in Milford and Stratford. So we're very diverse communities. A lot of people don't realize that there are that many different, it's just a very diverse place that we're living in. And it's nice to be enriched by all the different people that are coming to our community. So before COVID hit, we did a lot with cultural enrichment and education. So we were having classes here and some of our students were presenting so that we could get to learn a little bit more about them and where they come from and what their, special foods are and celebrations. And so, because of COVID, we've had to hold off on that, but I'm desperately hoping that that will resume sometime soon, because not only is it just a really fun way for us to kind of celebrate the people that are coming to the center, it's also a really nice opportunity for them to get to meet other people that may be from their country and they didn't even know it. So for example, we had an event a couple years ago, and there happened to be several women that were from Ukraine and Russia. And a woman had come to us. She wanted to be tutored. And she's like, I don't know anybody. I'm here all alone. And I said, well, tonight we're having an event, and there's actually going to be 2 other Russian women. And they all hit it off, and they've been fast friends ever since. So for the last 3 years, they pal around all the time, and they're always on Facebook and getting together and having lunches. So I was really happy that we could kind of be a place where they could come to and also get to know each other, which, you know, for all of us, it can be a really isolating experience when you're somewhere you can't speak the language, you don't know anybody. A lot of times, the majority of our students are women. Most times, people come as they're transferred for work. The men go off to work, and the women are home with their children. The children go off to school. The kids are learning English in school, and the women are left without learning these skills. So we're really happy that we're able to have our tutors and have people that come to us that we can offer those skills to them. We tutor about 100 students every year, give or take. Last year it was slightly less. We're roughly around like 110, 120. So, and our volunteer hours hover around 4,000 and 5,000 hours. So that kind of tells you and puts into perspective what kind of time is being given. We just ask that you take like an hour or 2 with your student every week, you know, to just be consistent. Sometimes we have some that would come every day if they could. That's entirely up to you. And if your student wants more time, we can put them in a class, or maybe there's another tutor. So sometimes we'll match people up with multiple, depending on what their level is and what they want to learn. Some may come and they're learning English, but then they also may want to get their citizenship. So maybe we'll pair them up with somebody else who already knows a lot about citizenship, and then they help them with their civics questions and things like that. So it's, you know, we work with a Challenger series. That's our curriculum, but it's very student centered. So if your student wants to, you know, go to college and is having a hard time understanding some of that curriculum, then that's what we work on. If they just need basic grammar and all of that, then we focus on that. So we have a little library in here, and we'll help guide you with that process. So, you know, we won't give you a student cold turkey and say, you know, good luck. We'll give you a book that will work with their level. And we have some other materials here. There's newspapers. And so we can show you all of those things, and then you can kind of find what works best for you. We also have some online classes. So we'll probably, and then I also have some that are already recorded. So I will share those with you guys so that you can kind of look at how other people teach, because sometimes that is helpful in just giving you guys a little extra support, and you may see things that align with you or that you're not comfortable with. And so then you'll find your own style. So we like to have you at least see as many of those as you can. And I'll send all of that out to you, so you won't have to search for that. But I think that's about it from me for right now. I'll turn it back to Betty so you guys can get started. It'll be the next 5 weeks, although I think we're gonna not meet on Memorial Day, so that will be a skip. And that's actually perfect, because that will be the 3rd weekend. So that'll probably be the week that we give you a student. So it'll give you an extra week to meet with that person and at least get to know them a little bit, you know, maybe set up a schedule so that when you come back to class the following week, you know, if there's any questions or things that you're needing, we can get that to you. Okay. So I'll turn it back to Betty, and Jim just came in. So hi, Jim.
Sorry, I had some computer problems.
Yeah. So, and this is being recorded because there are a few other people that couldn't take the morning class. So I will be sending that to them. And then, so there will be extra people like on the emails, but they'll just have to do it on their own time because they're working. Okay. All right.
Thanks,
So I'll
Tammy.
turn it back to Betty. Holler if you need anything. Okay, Betty?
Okay, I'm ready,
Okay.
Freddie. Okay, so here's a chance for you to introduce yourselves. Be interested in knowing how you found us, what your expectations are, why you're interested in tutoring, And of course, your name and where you're from. So Hamsatu kind of already talked a bit, but everybody wasn't here. So if you want to tell us a bit where you're from and a little bit of your history.
Okay. Right. My name is Hamsatu. I'm from Nigeria. I'm currently living in Abuja with my family, but I grew up from the northern part of Nigeria. That was where I was born, raised, and also had my education. I also I taught students more like grade 3 to 6 for 3 years. I taught them English, verbal reasoning, and conversation too. But after we had to move, we moved to Abuja, I think 5-6 years ago. So I cut off from teaching for a while. And then during the pandemic, I decided to go back to teaching. I wanted to go back to teaching and start maybe a career as an online tutor. So that was why I was surfing the net and I came across Literacy Volunteers. I actually tried other organizations too. Currently teaching. Also, I'm just volunteering actually. I haven't started anything professional yet. But I also decided to maybe have an online teacher certificate, like a TSOL online.
Mhm.
And so far, so good. I just obtained my certificate last month, and I've been
What did you
trying
get
other
last
things.
month? Excuse me?
My TESOL certificate, Teaching English as Second Language certificate,
Okay.
online. Yes.
Online you did,
Okay.
yeah. Because there are
Yes.
opportunities to be a tutor online through different organizations, and I don't know how I know that, but I can investigate some more if it's of interest to you. So that's
Okay.
good. Well, thank you, Hamsatu. She's
Thank
our very
you.
first international tutor trainee to come to us. Now that we Zoom, we can do all kinds of things, that we haven't done in the past. So it's kind of been fun
Exactly.
and nice to meet people from all over. Margaret
Nice to meet you.
Cartwright. Tell us
Hi,
about yourself.
I'm Margaret Cartwright, and in January I was laid off from my job, and I thought, well, I guess I'm retired, and I am also the mother of a 31-year-old, and he was raised kind of on a wing and a prayer. But the one thing, he's now an environmental engineer working for the EPA, and the reason for his success, I truly believe, is his love of reading. So even when I had a long commute, I would always read to him. And I mean, kids used to joke when he was in high school that he had the heaviest backpack because it was filled with books. So when I found myself with a little extra time, I thought, what better use of my time than to help other people learn English and read?
Sounds like a good motivating factor. Very good. Thank you, Margaret. And what city do you live in?
I live in Milford for
Milford.
the past almost 20 years.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Eileen.
Hi, I'm Eileen Doyle, and I live here in Milford. I moved here with my family about 30 years ago, originally from Brooklyn, New York.
And too. No. Hi. We're the Brooklynite. We're everywhere. One of our tutors in the background.
Okay, that's nice. I'm currently retired. I am an RN, and I also, I retired prior to the pandemic, and of course I started to become involved. I was volunteering at the senior center in the ARINS program, but of course, since the pandemic started, they had to close that down. And of course, being a nurse, I do like helping people. So of course, I came in contact with this program through my DAR services. They recommend this as a service.
Very nice.
So I'm looking forward to tutoring. I do like helping people, and I do like reading.
This. Where did you practice nursing?
Actually, I practiced nursing here in Connecticut, and I, for over 20 years, I did work at St. Joseph's Manor when it was when the sisters were
Still there.
Yes.
Yeah, I was at St. Vincent's all my career. You look familiar to me, but obviously it's not through St. Fees. But anyhow, well, thank you. Welcome, Eileen. Arcila, am I saying that right?
Yes, you are. Hello, everyone. So my name is Arcila. I currently live in Bridgeport. I'm originally from Albania. That's for whom that don't know, that's in Southeastern Europe. I just graduated from University of Bridgeport, had my ceremony 3 days ago.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That's a Bachelor of Science in Biology. So I'm currently actually studying for the MCAT. That stands for the Medical College Admission Test, planning to go to medical school.
Look.
So yeah, I have been actually volunteering for Bridgeport Hospital for over 2 years. But since COVID and everything else, they suspended the program until further notice. But since I'm used to volunteering and helping people and all that, I was like, I should definitely do something during this, while I'm kind of free on top of the studying and everything else. So yeah, I'm so looking forward to helping someone because I have my parents too, they're not perfect in English. So that's, it's good to have, that insight and kind of a good motivator, as you said. So yeah.
Oh, wish you success in a future career in healthcare. Very nice. Thank you for joining us. And Jim.
Hey.
Hey.
So my name is Jim Yaffe. I live in Milford. I've been here for about 10 years in the Morningside area. My history is I am also in the nursing profession. I'm an APRN. I was in the Army, active duty for 21 years, retired from the Army. Then I went to work for the VA, and I had worked for the VA for over 20 years, working in psychiatry service here in West Haven, doing a lot of treatment of substance abuse. That was my primary specialty at the VA. I retired just when COVID hit. My wife and I were planning on doing a lot of traveling, and then COVID hit, and then that put a crimp on that. I actually went back to work for the VA during COVID for a while. They were short help, and I went back to work, but essentially retired back last October. A lot of free time on my hands. I've got a lot of teachers in my family. My daughter's an English teacher. My son-in-law is a teacher. My brother's a chemistry teacher. My sister-in-law is a teacher. So I respect the teaching profession. I also interestingly, my grandfather, growing up, my grandparents were from New York. My grandfather never spoke a word of English. And I always regretted not being able to communicate with him, even, up into my 20s, we were never able to have a conversation. And I thought, maybe I could help some other people not to have that experience.
Yeah, that is a part of many families. The parents come over from the old country for just that expression, maybe to watch the children, while the parents are working, and that, that there's this gap between what the grandparents can speak in English and what the kids know of whatever language. So sometimes we get a grandparent in who just wants to learn how to read a book to a child, and might spend time just going over a book so that they can then go home and read to their grandchild. But that is one of the things we see from time to time. So I know you're feeling, a little bit nervous about this whole thing. You think, how am I going to teach somebody English when I don't know, Arabic or Urugu or Tongan? And, maybe you studied, I don't know, what did we study in the old days? Spanish, French, German, Latin, and you're lucky if you're Italian. I don't know if it says the Italian in the background here. And you don't remember much of anything. Hello, goodbye, thank you. Well, in any event, not to worry, as the kids would say. You too can do this. What you really need is that willingness to help other people. Pay attention in this class, do the readings, and you will be able to tutor. The reality is that almost everywhere in the world, they are teaching students English. And everybody who comes to us has at least some exposure to it. I can literally only think of one young lady that came from the mountains of Guatemala and really had a fairly rudimentary education and no exposure to English, which she's doing very well now, thank you. But she was truly the exception. Almost everybody else, you know, even if they just had to learn it to sell their handicrafts to tourists that might be coming in on a boat or in a market where they would have to interact with them, they knew that they needed enough English to be able to do that. So, but many are much higher on the schedule as well. Tammy alluded to this idea of learner-centered lesson plans. We don't have a curriculum per se. I'm not going to hand you a bunch of books and say, this is what you do. What you need to do is to obviously meet your students, find out what their goals are, and begin to formulate a plan for what, you know, may be needed. The key to the whole thing is repetition, 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 you know. But if you don't remember anything else from this class, you will remember these 3 words. And, you know, you'll have spent time teaching some kind of a part of grammar for maybe 3 weeks, and 6 months later, your student will swear that you've never taught them a thing about this, and they'll be like, okay, can we go back? Let's go back and revisit this. You know, they're just so many of them are so overwhelmed with their situation, or there's just a lot going on in their lives. Life is difficult enough for us, but if you're more newly arrived, you have a lot of responsibilities, you're trying to learn a language, you're trying to juggle childcare and school with your spouse, who's home with the kids, and, you know, people hold 2 jobs. It can get a bit chaotic. So, you know, things get lost in the sauce sometimes. But it doesn't mean you're a lousy teacher. It doesn't mean they're a dumb student. That's not what we're talking about at all. Have confidence in yourself to be able to do this. And actually, I say one of our chief roles besides teaching English is to give confidence to our students. You know, you're nice because you're safe. You know, you're not going to laugh at them, give them a hard time, you know, put them down in any way. They know, especially as time goes on, they see you as a friend and somebody they can count on to help them, you know, with speaking English. Now, the student I'm teaching right now, or tutoring, is from Haiti. And so her native language is French, and the French don't do S's. So some classes I hiss at her the whole time. You know, she's speaking English. Oh yeah, okay, gotta get the S. It's, oh, I missed it again. So it's a joke. Not something you're gonna do in the first couple of months with your student, you know. A good sense of humor goes a long way, as we'll touch on. So you did find your way on account of because, you know. Oh. Student and tutor and kissing. Okay. Now, do you all have the online manual available to you to reference, or maybe the manual itself? This is the homegrown one from the Literacy Center, as opposed to the book that might say tutor training materials right on the front. Anyhow, just to go to the outline of what we will be doing. Oh, well, where did that go? And to review some of the things we'll be doing. I'm not sure what your outline will say, but I am currently working on Monday mornings, 9 to 12. I did Thursday forever, but my work situation changed, so I can only get here on Monday mornings now. So you can reach me here, call in, whatever, email up here. You know, I can help you here. Tammy is here Monday through Thursday, 9 to 2. You can always come in. She can help you, or another volunteer here at the desk. So you've got my home phone number, my email address, and you know, to feel free to call me, email me, whatever. Not many students have done that, but you know, I am truly open to being available to you. So as we go through these 5 weeks, you know, this first session here is really just an introduction and an overview. We'll talk about characteristics of tutors, characteristics of ESL learners, our survival kit, a number of things along those lines.
Can I take off the headphones?
Week 2, I hope that you'll be able to meet a student and tutor online so they can talk about their experience. Florence and Janet come in here every Thursday, every Monday. Might be able to get them on, but we have others. And I think it's just reassuring to have you hear what others are doing, who are fairly new, and some who have been with us for a number of years, as well as their students. So that can be nice. We'll talk about the classes, grammar sites, lesson plans, the small groups, TPR, not to be confused with temperature, pulse, and respiration for all you nurses. This is total physical response. We'll talk about using that for beginning students. And we really concentrate on the beginning student in week 2. And in week 3, as Tammy said, you won't get your assignment at week 3. You have to finish the class, and we try to get you paired up in the interim. But very important that you try to connect with your student. I want to see that happen so that you can come back, report on the student, and give me a sense of what's going on, what your goals are, how the student is taking to your English classes. I just want to give this to you and have you going out on your own. So you may need to be fairly assertive to do this. Sometimes it's hard to get a hold of the student. You can call them, email them, or text them. I prefer, a phone call if indeed they're at the level of being able to communicate by phone. Not everybody can. You'll be taught some drills and dialogues, different approaches to use in teaching English during that 3rd week. The 4th week, you're reporting back to me on students.
I think these are broken.
And we'll talk about the advanced student there. In week 3, we're talking about the intermediate student. And again, on the last week, you'll be reporting some more on your encounters. And we'll go through a few other exercises that you can be using in your teaching process.
Take your headphones with you, by the way.
Any questions about anything so far? And feel free to ask, speak up, question. I'm nice.
I have a question.
Yes.
The students will be paired with, is it going to be like a one-on-one tutoring, or is it like in a group kind of?
That's a good question. I don't always think to mention it, but what's unique about our organization is that by and large, we do one-on-one tutoring. Big cities cannot offer that. Hartford, New Haven, Bridgeport. They're obligated by federal law, I believe, to offer English classes to people in those cities. And so they cannot prep their tutors to a one-on-one encounter. We're small. Milford is, I'm not sure what our population is anymore, 60,000 maybe. And a lovely city that has become very diverse over the years. When I moved here a number of years ago, I don't think I literally never saw anybody of color. Certainly, just Anglo, what's white Anglo-Saxon, whatever's. Now we serve people from 57 that speak 57 different languages. So that tells you we've changed a lot. And those of you who are Milfordites and get around it all know that we have become much more diverse. And it's a wonderful thing to see. So I feel like we play an important part in this whole process of acculturation and reaching out to the newly arrived. But only because we're so small can we do one-on-one. Now, sometimes I might ask you to take 2 students because maybe they're husband and wife and they're both at the same level of English, okay? You might have a husband, though, who's very good and a wife who's just learning. We're not putting them together, even though they might like that. It's not going to work, ordinarily anyhow. It'll probably be a one-on-one kind of thing. Do you have a preference for trying to do a small group?
Okay, I think I'm okay. I can do one-on-one, or I can do maybe a small group. It's okay.
Okay. I didn't know. It seems like your experience is probably more with a one-on-one, a small group of students. But anyway, we'll talk. Anybody else have any questions?
Yes, I also had a question, Betty.
Yes.
So, in regard, is everything going to be online via Zoom? Because I'm thinking probably not everyone will have access or be familiar with using the online platforms. Have you guys
Good
thought
point.
about that?
I would be one of those people. If Sammy wasn't here and itching us up, I'd be clueless. This is like my third time to Zoom along with anybody, but I'm getting better, like everything. So yeah, when I'm taking in applications, now we're asking, do you know how to Zoom or Skype or do FaceTime? It's essential, especially in this environment, that they do. Although, having said that, we've got a tutor and a student in the other room here who prefer. Florence is, one of our senior volunteers, and she's not so hot on the computer, and she definitely doesn't Zoom. And her student is comfortable coming in, and they mask. And we have a plexiglass, barrier between teacher and student. So, we're fairly safe. So if you do want a tutor here, that could be done. You can also use local libraries. I think we'll touch on places that have been used. I'm not sure how open they are yet. They're just beginning to open, as I understand it, and I haven't pursued anything with them to see, just how open they are. Stratford Library has little rooms upstairs that we have historically used for tutoring. They've been very good to us. Milford has some area. Milford Library has some areas as well. Orange is very friendly. West Haven has some. I haven't used them a lot that I'm aware of. And some of the churches have places. I mean, if you belong to a church or a synagogue, a mosque, whatever, they might have a room, a little room there and would let you tutor. We have one that goes over to St. James Parish Center at 7:00 in the morning to do it because that's what works for those two guys. So we kind of find our way. So in 10,000 words or more, but these are good questions because I'm sure if you're thinking it, so are other people. And you might have a preference to do one or the other. Of course, you got to do it on the basis of what your student is about to. Got to work it out. Anything else? We will eventually have I used to do the class, obviously, in person, and maybe we'll get back to that at some point. And I would always have videos, which are just so good. I mean, I'm saying a video, but I'm not sure what they are. We're getting videotapes put onto, I don't know what, so that we can get it into like a YouTube setting so that our students like yourselves will be able to access them. I will not incorporate them into the middle of our classes, but you can access them, and they're just really good because it's real people doing real stuff, and that's always nice, I think, rather than just listening to me babble on. So at some point we will have that come to fruition. So if you have not come in to get a book yet, of course, obviously I'm not saying you're not going to, but you really need it for reading in the coming weeks. And, so maybe I should just mention that, the assignment for next week is to read the first 4 chapters. It's fairly easy reading, gives you a good background on ESOL, kinds of students, things that go on in their lives. So do that, and we'll also ask you to be working out a survival kit. We'll talk about that later on. It's something that you can put together to be using in your tutoring experience. If I've covered everything I want to cover, yes, I have. Okay. Well, page 3 talks about becoming a volunteer here, and what your required, what your understanding of it will be. And that's to attend all the workshops. Okay, now this is our weekly sessions. If you cannot, for some reason, it's being recorded, as you know, right now. You can pick it up online, on YouTube at some point during the week, should you be unable. You need to become familiar with your manual. I'll reference that throughout these training sessions, and complete any assignments that you may be given. And at the end of the 5 weeks, we will meet again after about 6 weeks to 2 months to come back and just talk about the experiences, problems, questions, whatever. It's nice when we met in person because we'd all bring some goodies, and it was, a little food fest as well, but, such as the times. We're asking for a commitment of at least 1 year. Some people cannot complete it for whatever reason, because the student can't complete it. They can't, they move, they get a new job. And some go on forever. You know, we have people here with 10, 15 years of working with their students. To respect your students' privacy. You know, we don't ask anybody what their status is, are they here legally or illegally. It's never been a problem. If you have any feelings about it, let me know. But I'm not aware that that has ever been a problem for virtually any of our students, tutors. We're looking for essentially 2 hours a week. And even 2 hours, you know, you're not going to be able to do nearly as much as you might like to. One does not learn a new language in 2 hours a week of classes. So you really need to encourage them to watch TV, listen to the radio, those kinds of things. We had one fellow who used to go down to the beach and just walk around and see if anybody would talk to him. These days he'd probably get arrested, but you know, for him, that was, you know, one of his good ways to talk to people. You know, he wanted to practice his English. That's the way he did it. I want you to keep good records of your time. Your preparation time, your tutor time, and if indeed you're traveling, your travel time. This information is really important to us. It lets us tell the companies and organizations that support us the number of hours, you know, such as Tammy alluded to, that our volunteers are giving. We're totally dependent on, you know, all the good people in Milford and other organizations. Banks have been particularly good to us. The Rotary, besides our fundraising activities, you know, to be able to tell these folks, you know, this is what we've accomplished. And our use of the Challenger series, again, which is something that Tammy alluded to, we ask you to use that at least once a month as you're going along. Not possible for you, obviously, Hamsatu. But the good thing about that is that you can measure progress. You know, it's one thing if you have a student who's essentially a beginner and knows virtually no English, you can see the progress. If you have somebody who's an intermediate student or an advanced student, you know, you can spend 6 months and say, you know, I'm not sure what I accomplished. You know, I know they're better somehow, but it's hard to put your finger on it. And even the student probably couldn't say, oh, I can, you know, I know I'm talking better. Yeah, you all know something is better, but you don't know what. The use of this Challenger series is nice because it starts from the more basic student way up to the very, very advanced student. So if you've gotten through all of book 1 and all of book 2, you know that there's been improvement. So does the student. By the way, the student does get a copy of this book, and you can take a copy out from the library here, just sign it out and get it back to us when you're done. And students generally like it a lot, and so do tutors. It's kind of a nice way to break up your lessons and, you know, teach something a little bit different.
Betty, I have a question. The Challenger series book, what is the title?
Challenger, let's see, do I have one here? You got one there, Tammy? Thank you. We're ready. Surprise, it's called Challenger. It'll be 1, 2, 3 through 8, I think it can be.
Oh,
What's
okay.
nice about
And the author?
it's in the office. We've got
No, the author.
oh, the author. The author is New Reader Press. Yeah, New Reader Press. As I say, your student gets one to keep. You can take this out and you know, use it until you go on to the next one.
Oh, okay.
Okay. There's just a variety of things in here. There's reading comprehension, vocabulary, how to form, for example, adverbs out of verbs, whole different kinds of parts of grammar. It's very nice. Any other questions about that?
Do you have an online version of that book?
Not that I'm aware of. We don't have it, and I don't know that it would be online. Um, You're sending out a what, Tammy? Okay, Tammy will send out links. So
Okay.
maybe there is something that can be accessed online. That would be nice. Tammy talked about a multicultural event that we do usually in like June or so, but of course this year we're not doing it for any number of reasons. Where we get the students and tutors together. Everybody brings a little of their national foods, and a good time is had by all. And the students, some of the students will get up and read their essay. Every year we require a student, your students to write an essay about virtually anything. Obviously the basic student is probably going to write 4 sentences, and you could kind of help them do that. On the other hand, we have advanced students that have turned in 2-page masterpieces, but because that is a part of the learning process of English, we consider this important to do. So you'll start to get emails from Tammy or whoever follows her, reminding you to work with your student to get this thing started. And if you're helping them, we're saying even when you're doing any kind of writing, to skip lines, it's much easier if you need to edit something. If when they're writing, they skip a line between each whatever sentence or thought that they have down there, so that if you need to edit or they need to edit, there's a space to do that. But then when you turn it in, of course you want it to look like the normal kinds of things. So you're welcome to borrow these materials that we have in our library. You'll get a periodic reminder about them. When you're done, please get them back. We are not a rich organization, and so we can't just afford to have these things, disappear or go off to the hinterlands. If you're using them for 3 or 4 months, that's fine. As long as you're using them, no problem as far as we're concerned. Okay. Okay, so the purpose of this workshop obviously is to prepare you as a tutor for ESL students and to provide you with important information related to tutoring. To the extent possible, we'll try to do some small group stuff. Haven't been able to quite work that out on Zoom yet, but but that we have a chance to work on a particular situation, and as a group, perhaps we can look at it and assess it. But primarily it's to expose you to this whole process of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And then to see that as an integrated whole, because this is the focus that your book takes, and this is how we learn language. You think of the baby who's, first listening to the mother's voice, then they try to speak themselves. Eventually they learn how to read and write. So all those things feed off of each other and really get to be very important. Your students want and need to learn and understand, speak, read, write English in order to be able to survive in this culture. For sale, exit, stop signs, things that are in the grocery store, in the post office. These things are essential for them to be able to read, just to get by and to be safe. Our students come from a wide variety of backgrounds and cultures. As I indicated, almost everybody has been exposed to English. I'd say the majority of folks that come to us have a college degree. They have left their country so that their children will have a better life. And for all the craziness that's going on in this country, I guess it's still better. I mean, I know it's better, than what's going on in many places. And they do this at tremendous cost to themselves. If they were a teacher, an architect, an engineer, when they come here, they can't do any of those things because you need a license, you need certain educational requirements. And so, they're working in restaurants, get any kind of a job that they can. And the more limited their English is, the less likely they are to get a good job. And most of them realize that. So the majority are working very, very hard to acquire better English skills. But again, there's a lot of factors going on in their lives that make this difficult at times. Most people acquire English, as I've already kind of indicated, by first hearing it. Think of the child speaking it, trying to say the words that they have heard and learned. Or if even yourselves have been in environment, maybe you're overseas vacationing, that you hear words, you might be trying to, imitate them to make your needs known. And then the reading and writing aspect that further enhances the ability. This is called the communicative approach, and it's the approach that our book uses. It emphasizes practical language use. It stresses the importance of comprehension and the integration of all these language skills. And one of the things you probably weren't counting on was that you were going to be a model, and not the kind that goes down the runway, but people are looking at you. You're modeling the language. They're watching your lips. I mean, sometimes the students are like this, watching your lips and how you're forming certain words. Now, in some cultures, to do that would be the height of rudeness. So again, you're feeling your way through some of this stuff. But this is it's not unknown. So they're watching and listening very carefully to what you're saying. So be sure you don't over-articulate. You may be trying to emphasize something. And of course, when you first teach it, you want to be sure that they can hear all the sounds. But if you are talking like this in every single word, at some point it becomes stilted. So it can really distort the sounds and in the long run make it difficult. Don't speak too slowly. Again, you might do it more slowly initially so they can hear all these words and sounds and have them register in their heads. But if you do that consistently, then they'll gear themselves towards that. And as you know, that ain't the real world. Most of us are babbling on incessantly like I am right now. I mean, they could not follow it. So, you need to get a happy medium. Obviously, the new student, the one who's still learning, I'm going to speak a little bit slower with them than I might an intermediate or advanced student, where I would be doing my normal kind of talk. And as you get to know your student, you know what they can tolerate and how you might want to approach that. You're kind of playing off your student and what you know about them. Also, don't speak too loudly. You will be sure at some time the reason that they're not learning as fast or as well as you think is they probably don't hear you. That's not the thing. Again, it's the business of trying to assimilate a lot of things at the same time. And so there can be this overwhelming sense of trying to adjust to many things besides just the language. So don't speak too loudly. Be aware of your intonation. Sometimes you're trying to emphasize something in teaching a particular part of grammar. And so it's kind of, gets a bit distorted in trying to do the teaching. Not so bad when you teach it, but then, to use it normally thereafter. And to be natural in the phrases and contractions that you normally use. Now, contractions being obviously another whole thing. For the intermediate and advanced student, they're really into contractions. But obviously, a beginning student needs to know I'm is I am, or we're, or there. There's some basic contractions that need to be taught. Because we don't say every single word when we speak. And as far as where you meet, I think we have a list there of tutoring sites. I've already talked about the Milford Library, Milford Library, Stratford, Orange, West Haven. The Margaret Egan Center in Devon, it's the old Lenox Avenue School, has places, rooms that you can use. They're very bare, however. I mean, there's nothing stimulating in them. I think there's a blackboard. Maybe they've upgraded them a bit. I'd used them in the past. You might have, again, a church, a workplace. that would accommodate teaching. So, I mean, these are things that can be used. You just need to find your way, given where you are. So then the big thing here is the tutor assignment, you know. How is that done? What's involved in it? I've said after the third week, you will get your student. And the expectation is that you will obviously contact them as soon as possible. I have historically done most of the assignments. Tammy has been doing more, just given the way things have evolved because of COVID. But I ordinarily try to contact your student ahead of time. Be sure they're still interested, to be sure that their time noted on their application is the time that they're really available. And I'm looking at your time. Obviously, if you can only tutor in the evening and they can only tutor in the day, well, it ain't gonna work, right? So that's a really big factor. To the extent possible, I look to see any kind of interest that you might have. If they're looking to become a nurse aide or an RN, you know, I might think of those of you that have a medical background. That's often not the case, but if it can be done, I certainly look at that. You'll get a copy of their application, so you know who they are, where they live. We can fax it out, we can email it to you, whatever is necessary, so that you'll have some really basic information, including a phone number. We ask for their email address. If they're advanced, I mean, I think it's always nice to call them. But again, do what you're comfortable with and what they're comfortable with. Somebody at a lower level, it might be better, I mean, obviously, to email them because they can look at it, they can get a friend in to help them translate it, and then to try to set up some kind of a meeting. A beginning student, a really basic student, will have somebody that will have come here or will have helped them with filling out their application. So when you first meet, you will be getting a hold of that contact person. You won't even be trying to get the student because they will be in contact with the student. So that they can come that very first time when you meet, so that they can express the needs of the student, answer any questions, you know, all those kinds of things. You do that for the first meeting. After that, sayonara, you know, it's just you and your student. And that may not be as difficult as you think. However, I will say in the beginning, it is extremely almost overwhelming. To do anything more than 1 hour at a time with a basic student is probably all that you can do and that they can do. I mean, it's really that focused. You're trying so hard to teach. They're trying so hard to listen and to understand. So there you might want to do an hour on, say, Tuesday and an hour on Thursday. As time goes on, you know, and they progress, then, you know, you can get those 2 hours together. But that's almost without exception. I'm not aware of any situations where anything different than 2 sessions was possible with a basic student. Your intermediate, your advanced student, you can easily do 2 hours, and, you know, it could go on a lot longer than that if it just happens, or if you have the time, they have the time, and more frequently than once a week if you have the interest, and they do too. We'll also get a thing called a culturegram. And we give you one of those for of the country that your student comes from. It has like 3 or 4 pages. It lets you know about the land, the climate, the history, the religion, personal appearance, in this case, eating, gestures that might be used that are good or bad, family life, dating and marriage. I mean, you name it, it's in here. So it really gives you a lot of good information before you meet the student. And for, you know, for any number of students, kinds of students, I guess I should say, it won't be so different in many ways from that which we know here. But we're not as familiar with the Arabic culture for example, and we have a number of Arabic students from Turkey, Jordan, a number of places. And so it's really important that we know and understand aspects of their culture. And I mean, that's something that can be discussed if they're more advanced, but it's nice going in ahead of time to know some of the fine points of it. We always try to keep men to men and women to women tutor students from that culture, because it's usually not acceptable to have a man tutoring a female. Now, somebody who's been here a long time and maybe is trying to fine tune their English, maybe it's no big deal because they've become more used to it, or they were not totally orthodox in their religion. So we feel our way through that. But ordinarily, I'm very sensitive to that and try to be careful about who I assign to whom. And when you contact them, I know you're going to be nervous. I mean, after all these years of meeting new students, I'm still nervous. But if you're nervous, you got to know they are really nervous. I mean, heebie-jeebie kind of nervous. Keep in mind that these are often educated people, not that that says anything. And even he who is less educated might even feel more intimidated. These are people who used to being in charge of their lives, running businesses, working in high power positions. And now they can barely make their needs known, or if they can, if they're more advanced, they're still stumbling more than they like to. We have one fellow who has, what he wanted was to have his tutor listen to him read something. And anytime he made a mistake in pronunciation or accenting a word the wrong way, he wanted to be told. Now, that's not what you do with a beginning student, because they're just moving along and they may not be saying things perfectly. And as long as you can say that they're fairly understandable, okay, let it go, because your job there is to teach survival skills. In this case, this man was an engineer, I believe, in his own country, was fortunate enough to get a job here and speaks a decent English, but he realizes that his English isn't nearly as good as his compatriots at work. And he wants to appear as educated and knowledgeable as they are. And so he sees his ability to speak well as being very important. Now, that's kind of an unusual situation where that's what a tutor wants. But our advanced students, tend to want more unusual kinds of things. Just talk to me. I just want you to talk to me. That's all. I need to hear English being spoken. That's not what your basic student is trying to do. There's a lot of different needs at different levels. So any questions about anything at this point? So you're going to meet the students, you'll find a place, and there's a very good article. In fact, if you go to the end of your, probably at the end of your chapter 1, and it's a guide for the first ESL lesson. And that is just a wonderful article. It really talks about, your feelings, there's things that you want to do or not do, acknowledging your discomfort and theirs. I always suggest, I used to say bring pictures, but of course we don't do that anymore. We take our phone and show pictures of your family, maybe your kitty cat, your dog, your children, your grandchildren. And say, be aware of the setting that you're in. I know some of our students come from very simple home situations, and if it looks like you're living in the Taj Mahal, that might be intimidating, to them. Just be aware of it. It's not, just be aware. I guess that's all I would say. Outdoor pictures or indoor, whatever. But showing pictures of family members is something that everybody can relate to. If they're basic, you can be teaching mother, father, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, those kinds of things. Oh, look how cute the baby is. Oh, I have a baby too, It's a good way to break down barriers and to have everybody feel more comfortable. You certainly don't want to try to do much at that meeting. You might do a name tag or, your name in writing. For whatever reasons, Betty is a name that's apparently unknown anywhere in the world because everybody stumbles over it and can't relate it to anything. And of course, it's a kind of an old-fashioned name in this country. But for them to see it in writing, and likewise for you to see their name in writing, can be good for both of you. So you're really going to be listening to their English during this time. Certainly not correcting, certainly not, saying don't do this, don't say that, but just to listen. Are there grammatical errors? Is their accent so heavy that it's hard to understand them? Are there certain sounds that they can't make? That's often a problem. An R sound, a TH sound, an L sound. Some languages, it just doesn't exist. An R sound does not exist in Tongan. So that they find ways to, they want to incorporate that Tongan aspect into the spoken English, and you can get by with that up to a point. But sometimes it's not even an accent, just the way they say certain words makes it almost unintelligible. And you might want to note that. See if there's anything else I want to say about that. So at that point in time, you may get a sense of what their goals are. What do they want? What do you think they're going to do? They might, if you've got an intermediate student who's going to start a job working at a restaurant, so you're going to want to be thinking about, okay, what kind of vocabulary are they going to need to work in a restaurant? Pots and pans and knives and forks, setting up a table, all that kind of vocabulary. So you want to have that in the back of your mind so that when you're teaching some aspect of English, you're incorporating these kinds of words into your lesson. So kind of killing two birds with one stone. A, they learn vocabulary. B, they learn grammatical structures as well. To the extent that you can do that, that would be really very helpful. Any questions about anything at this point? You also have information about a tutor, what they should be like, what kind of characteristics they should have. And, none of this will come as any surprise. The element of patience, being versatile. Find many different ways of trying to teach something. Be creative. I mean, we've had students, one student that used to make up songs to teach a certain part of English, and the students loved it. I mean, she just did this. You and I probably can't do that, but it worked. Sometimes they've drawn maps of like Milford because the student doesn't know his way around Milford. So they did a map, that showed all the different places of interest. So feel free to be flexible, to do things that, if you have a certain leaning towards something, art, music, use these things in the course of your tutoring. Try to get a sense of how does your student learn best? Some people do good with a written word. Some do best just by listening. Most people want to do the written word, and at some point in time you have to do it. But this whole business, the way most languages are taught by Berlitz and actually in the Peace Corps, I mean, you get the written thing at the very end. And that's what's good and bad because Hamsatu, did you have a comment? No. The written word, what are they going to say about that? It just went out of my head. Okay, we're going to have to block that for the moment. Yeah, so to be in an English-speaking atmosphere or whatever language it may be, is really good for a student to help them to learn. The written word, we're more inclined to give at the end of a lesson. It forces them to listen. You can spend time, being aware of speaking and how your mouth is forming certain words. And all this will help them with the learning process. Humor, needless to say, goes a long way. Be sure that you're encouraging your students too. That's one of the things I guess I don't do well, because I would say, many of my students have said, Betty, how am I doing? I'm saying, you're doing fine, you're doing great. And I realize that I don't I don't tell them that enough. I don't want to lay something on them. But to give honest, positive reinforcement, it's just really important. So keep it in the back of your mind. We kind of talk about creativity, being perceptive of your student. You might notice that something is wrong. You know, you might have had a lesson set up to teach the verb to be or something, and they come in and they're upset or they're crying or something. That's what your lesson is. You're paying attention to what their needs are at that moment. Maybe their son or daughter is having a hard time in school. They don't know how to talk to the teacher. You can role play a conversation. You can just listen to them. You don't have to solve their problems. That's not what we're here for. But to be there for a sounding board, to have somebody to talk to, yeah, that we are. And who is the learner? They know that they need life skills to survive in this culture. So, you know, answering the phone can be a very significant event for your students. It's hard when you're talking on a phone and you can't see the person's mouth moving. You know, you really have to listen. Many of them are trying to get better jobs or go back to school. They want to make friends. And it's hard to make friends if you can't find, Tammy alluded to this, you know, if you can't find somebody from your own culture here, you've got to know enough English to get by. And we do have a number of activities here that have helped students to do that. We've also worked with students who want to become citizens. And if you want to teach someone to do that, you will learn a lot in the process because we've forgotten so much of what we used to know. We've got books here that can help. There's good online information. You know, it's a wonderful thing when you've gotten your student all the way through a program and they get their citizenship at the end. We always like to know about these things and their accomplishments. They want to help their children in school. You know, the mother who is very basic and has preschool children, you know, to learn the colors, letters, numbers, days of the week, months of the year. These are things that she could help her preschooler with, and she could feel like she's still in control of her family and of their life, really contributing something to them. So these things can be really important to your students. Most of them are highly motivated, as I've indicated, come from a lot of different kinds of backgrounds, have many responsibilities besides learning English, may have difficulty pronouncing certain sounds. I think I've touched on that, R's and L's, TH's. There's stuff on YouTube. I know YouTube has a video, whatever you call them these days, I'm not sure, on the TH sound, for example. That's very difficult for folks. And they fear embarrassment speaking English to people who may not be very tolerant or kind. Generally, I think people are happy to help. They see somebody is trying to speak, that they try to reach out to them. But nevertheless, it can be hard to be on the receiving end of that kind of thing. And they're just experiencing a lot of stress in their lives because of all the different kinds of things. And, you know, we have students who've been here for 20 years that are now looking for help in English. And you might say, what? Well, you know, just like, let's say, Americans or English-speaking people in a foreign country, you know, you gravitate towards people who speak your same language. And so if you don't have the need to learn the local language, then you don't. But at some point, it might be like, you know, I could do this, or I could speak better, I could get a little better job. They might be inspired after a number of years to you know, want to improve their English skills. So might be surprising on the one hand that they're as old as they are, or been here as long as they have been, and are just now trying to improve their English skills. We're here for everybody. Any questions about anything I've said in 10,000 words or more? There's another page, some comments about and suggestions about tutoring. You can look those over. Everyday items that can be used as teaching material. 2 pages, 2 sides of a page. Could probably be one word on these, anything. I mean, if you find something that works or is of interest to the students, do it. Use it. They may come to you with questions about something, like a report card maybe, or a note from the teacher that wants to see them in class, see them after class about their child. But anyhow, will give you some ideas of things that you might be able to use. And then finally, your ESL survival kit. It's page 146 in your I Speak English book, but it's something I just really encourage everyone to start to do. You don't know what kind of a student you're going to get until the very end, and shouldn't just have to be focused on that. Students, even some more advanced ones, may need help with things like price tags. Our shoe sizes in this country is totally different than what goes on in other countries. Basic students, you're looking at a clock, a bus schedule, a bilingual dictionary. We do have those. Well, we don't have bilingual, but we do have dictionaries that we give out to you to give to your students, which I always say, be sure you teach them how to use it. This never occurred to me until just a couple of years ago. In poorer countries, nobody has a dictionary. And even in rural schools in more advanced countries, a dictionary may be unknown and they may truly not know how to use it. So spending some time teaching that can be time well spent. Anyhow, there's a bunch of things. A mirror at any level, that can be very helpful. Holding your mirror here so they can see and you can see how certain sounds and words are formed. Again, keeping in mind that in some cultures, you do not make direct eye contact with your teacher or anybody. You kind of look down. So mouse to mouse with a mirror can be very, very useful. I think if there's anything else, there are books that we have, and I'm missing it right now, but there's a whole series of books with English, Arabic, English, Italian, English, Spanish. And I mean, there's pictures of everything under creation, I think, that is in these books. So if you can locate one online and want to, get it for your student, or maybe your student could buy it, these are really, really wonderful. It's very, very helpful to them so that they have words for anything and everything. There's also workbooks that go with these. I can think of this one here. I can't quite read it. I'll dig that out next week for you. But these things can be very, very helpful as well. So anything else? Anything that you have questions about? So you'll start your little survival kit. You'll read the first 4 chapters of your book. And then next week, we'll start to talk about our beginning student, complete with a lesson plan, and follow up.
Sorry, Betty, how do I get the survival kit book? Because all I can see here is just that page.
Yes, well, this is fairly, I should probably say a little bit more about it. One of the things to try to get in there is pictures. Because you could use a picture at any level. Sometimes your lesson kind of comes to an end and it's like, gee, you still have a little time to talk or to do something. If you can whip out one of your pictures and, at a beginner's level, you might say, well, what color is this? Maybe you're pointing to a tree, a lake, a house, have them identify the colors. But for a more advanced student, you say, well, tell me what's going on here. What's going on here? I don't know. We'll make up a story. So, you turn on the creative juices. So getting pictures, I don't know how available that is to you. You can print a lot of things off the internet, obviously. Books, magazines, newspapers. But I think pictures are probably one of the primary things you want to get in there because they're good at any level.
Okay. are we supposed to get the book? And that's I Speak English book. Am I supposed to get the book online and read the first chapters?
Yeah, I think Tammy's going to try to send out links. I don't know if this is online or not. It's not going to be the end of the world if you don't have it, but it sure would be nice.
Okay.
Because again, now you've had some training, you said, in teaching. So, you know, you've got a good frame of reference coming into this. But it is nice to have some printed material that can further enhance your knowledge, needless to say. So watch for emails from her. If you can dig it out, she will.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else from anybody? Okay. So we'll meet again next week. Do your reading. And then the following week we'll have a break because of the holiday. And then we'll resume again. So good. It was really nice to have you all here. I hope you enjoy this experience. I mean, some of the dearest friendships can be formed. You know, you may never meet, but, you know, just to have a friend, remind of Chase Manhattan. You remember that commercial, maybe? I love commercials. But, you know, you'll have a friend who, you know, will depend on you, will appreciate your help so much. One of the things I always remember happening to me is that one of my very first students was from Lebanon, and it was a woman who had literally never been to school a day in her life because she was a girl, and, you know, girls are just meant for housekeeping and babies, you know, and her brother is a doctor. And so she had gotten into this country by the lottery system. I don't know if you're aware of that. You know, there used to be like 50,000 names pulled a year. And if you were lucky enough, you know, you could come to America. So she was lucky enough. And her daughter came with her. So her kids were learning English in school, and they would come home at night and teach her everything that they had learned. And so she, you know, she had a little bit of knowledge. So I ended up tutoring her. I ended up tutoring her oldest daughter, and then eventually tutored her second oldest daughter. And this went on literally for years and years. But I remember the oldest daughter saying to me, you know, Betty, and this was probably like after 2 years or 3 years, you're the only American friend that we have. You're the only one that we really know that speaks English. And I'm thinking, you have all kinds of Lebanese relatives who've been born here and speak English, but somehow in her mind's eye, it wasn't the real thing. But it was a kind of a heartwarming moment that, you know, that it meant a lot to her. And, you know, we're just so grateful to have you as a friend. And likewise, I cherish their friendship. So that's some of the kind of thing that can happen. Friendships that kind of go on, and I'm still, you know, connected with a number of them from over the years. Likewise, my Tongan family from my years ago in Tonga is now all out in Arizona. I mean, we're talking something close to 50 years of a relationship. And, you know, their oldest daughter came out and helped me with my mother when she was elderly and I was working. Now her daughter is coming to visit. We've gone back and forth for funerals and weddings and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's truly my second family. I know and they consider me the eldest daughter of 12, you know, the really old daughter of the family. So again, a very special kind of relationship. It's so nice to live in another culture and experience another culture, so that, you know, we all think that our culture is just fine, but you know what, we're all pretty much the same in many ways. And, you know, every culture just has its own little slant to life, you know, and it's good that we experience it. You know, there's many ways of doing the same thing. Okay, now I'm done preaching. So if there's no other questions, I'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
You're welcome. I hope I didn't wear you down with all the talking.
Thank you very much, Betty.
You're welcome. So nice to have you all. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You have a great
Bye-bye.
day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yep. Toodaloo.